to me, like it seemed like he did so many, in my opinion, like terrible things that I was just like, well, how could people think that, like, kind of forget that and be like, oh, well, he also did good things. Like, I don't know. That was just like really confusing to me because like it just seemed like overall he didn't do good things.
Yeah, I mean it's okay, I guess. Anyone else?
If I can just piggyback off of what Lindsay said, I think it's like she said, it's kind of intriguing for me how he's both a hero and a villain all at the same time. He's the protagonist and the antagonist because as I think it was Shireen who said in the very beginning that it was almost as if he was money and power hungry. So everything he did, even though he was doing things for the populace, and even though it did contribute to us today, in some ways positively, he still did. It's not like his intent was, or it didn't seem like from the documentary, I can say for me, it didn't seem like his intent when I watched the documentary was, oh, let's better the people. It seemed like his intent was, well, I want to do this, so I'm going to do this. And if, good happens from it, then okay. And if not so much good happens from it, then okay. So that's kind of what it seemed like when I watched the documentary. I think also when it came to like the way that there was a bill that he passed called, I think it's called the first one, or something like that, when he was, clearing out the slums and stuff. And initially it was said, oh, this is going to be for low income housing. And then the people that he chose were like his bankers and his finance friends and things like that. And then they in turn said, you know what? No, it's not going to be Title I. Yes, thank you. And they in turn said, you know what? That's not what it's going to be for. Or they had like an act like, oh, that's what it's going to be for. And then when it was built, it was more so, well, this is for the middle class, not for those of color, not for the, the low class Italian or Jew or, migrant that has come here during the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I just want to make a comment here, like what you two said, like, he might did something good, but like the bigger picture was like, it was pretty bad, or like how you put it here. So it's like, I guess it's like, again, like if we think the first question, like how history help us, like, or why it's necessary, it's like, that's also a good, like, example, because like sometimes sometimes you can just like, if you want to see the good things, you can just see them. But actually, if you like study history critically, you can see the bigger picture and like connect with the today problem. So I guess like COVID is a good example. So last year, like the housing prices in New York dropped drastically, and I just it's just like, because like if it's not rent control, they can just raise the rent however, like the landlords, they can raise the rent however they want. So there are a lot of people that are like suffering this year because like it's getting better. So I guess I want to do a breakout rooms, and I'm gonna visit the rooms, and like when we come back, like I want you to, like, every group, maybe you can choose a person, and so or two people, like however you want, and I just want you to talk after we come back. So I'm just going to give you like let's say 20 minutes, and like just like today's like housing problems and how like it's related with like history, and like I want you to make a kind of connection, or you can also talk about your own experience if you want. Yeah, just like discuss this week like concepts, and like and I will visit you. That sounds okay? Okay. We will have 6 groups. I guess that's a good number. And I will like visit each group. So, but please like feel free. I'll like, discuss whatever you want. But I guess I just want to hear about like your opinion about like how COVID affect housing in New York City, and like is there any connection between history and today?
I think it'll be easier if we just use our mics. So, like, does anyone have any opinions or, like, anything to say?
I don't know much about housing, so I don't. Honestly, I have no clue right now.
I mean, I guess you can just, like, kind of compare it to what you see around you, how COVID maybe affected you or your neighbors, or like maybe your community, you know, or what you like, or what you read about in the news, maybe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it increased the prices of a lot of things. I know prices for like cars or definitely went up, and other issues. It like exemplified it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I think also like the prices of just everything else, just because of like supply and demand. Like it wasn't just cleaning supplies anymore. It was kind of just like everything on a whole.
It definitely made people panic, and that was probably one of the reasons why prices for things like toilet paper increased, because they were panicking that it might run out. You might as well get it while I can.
I think that too, but I also think it kind of was like a domino effect to kind of like now everything, because I know I personally, like, I would go to the store, like I remember like there were times when I went to the store and like when shelves were empty, like I was just like wait, what was at this area? Like I didn't know what it was, but because it was just empty, because that space was just not there, it was like a sudden urge now, like wait a minute, like do I need this? Like why are they buying it? It's something like I just kind of felt like I needed it too. Even if it was something like I didn't necessarily eat or something like I wasn't interested in before, that panic kind of like, I think it affected everyone.
Yeah, it was the case of, hey, they're doing it. Maybe they know something I don't. So maybe I should do what they're doing just in case. So people panicked, and they definitely bought. Yeah, I know what you mean. I was like, hey, when I was here, I was like, hey, am I gonna run out of toilet paper? Am I cursed? There's no toilet paper. Am I gonna have to start using sandpaper? I don't know. I was panicking.
No, I know exactly what you mean, but I also feel like with like what she was talking about, like the housing, the prices, how it went up, and how like landlords control like because they have the control. But I feel like we when we started moving to cities, we kind of gave that up because like, you know, before people had houses, people had land. So like as like cities became more like accustomed, it's like normal to have an apartment. Like, you know, it's like the norm, or even to like rent a room and stuff. So I feel like we didn't realize like it was like a profit for someone else during that time, you know?
Yeah, I think it has to do with it's mostly because of where we live, because I'm pretty sure New York City has always been an expensive place to live, especially for closer to the city, because you pay a lot of money for not that much space. Well, you would get way more space if you lived elsewhere, and I think COVID made that a bit worse. Well, way more worse, I guess.
I think, yeah, because for a city, it's the amenities. So like, excuse me, I've lived many places, and I've lived like more rural areas, and now I live in the city. And I think compared to before, it's like because there's less space. Like, you know, saying I'm gonna like walk to the store, or even like go a couple blocks and have different variety of like different stores, or just different types of food, and just, you know, just different and a variety, as opposed to like, you know, when you live and you got to drive like 30 miles because you have to go to the next town over because maybe you just, you know, want this type of food, you know?
Yeah, I do think that's one of the major benefits of living in a city. I remember I was listening to a podcast, and one of the issues they were having was they went out for an outdoor activity, and I guess they went somewhere that was a bit more secluded, and they were wondering where they would eat their dinner, because these people, they're used to living in the city, and they just need to go to a supermarket and they can find snacks or whatever. But here they are in a place where that's not really available. They need to go miles to actually get food. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree. But talking about like when she talked about COVID, I'm not exactly sure what she wanted us to really talk about, but I think basically just because of supply and demand, that changed the dynamic of everything that we see, you know, like whether it be like housing or like you said like cars or just like everything. It just changed because we weren't like no one really I feel like no one really prepares for that. Like they're just like, even though we see stuff mass produced, it's just not gonna be enough for every single person on the earth. And then when people do start, like, I think there's just like a gap in the system, because like I was reading that there's like a supply on meat. Like it was like, wait, what? Like what?
Yeah, I think one of the things COVID has taught me is like meat became, yeah, like you said, meat became pretty expensive, and you don't realize like how, because if you slow down the production of things, when production slows down, that affects everyone. Like if a company just has a shortage, that's going to affect a lot of prices. And yeah, I also like heard about. I'm gonna go back to like cars, because I watched a video on it, and it was pretty interesting. There was an issue with cars because of COVID, and what the companies did was they basically do this thing where instead of having parts beforehand, so you need parts to make the car. Instead of having parts beforehand, they would have the parts as the car was being built. So there was nothing they could do like to have the parts. They didn't prepare ahead, right? They had, while they were building the car, they had the parts coming in instead of having parts on the ready. So as an effect of that, because manufacturers were slowing down, and I'm pretty sure production cost increased, they would just have cars that are half built that they would just have to store somewhere, and then you would have to wait for very specific parts to come in to then finish those cars and then sell them. So I know that was a huge problem.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. That's like that, but that makes sense when you think about it, because like when you said production slows down, then and especially when people are in a panic, it kind of like, you know, you don't know what else to do, because like what are people gonna do, you know?
Yeah, I think these I don't think, while we as like a community have learned, I think companies have also learned a bit as well, because I don't think if a company goes through problems like that, it makes, you know, they lose money for it, because they were trying to. The whole reason they did stuff like this is because, you know, having extra parts just sitting around, that's going to cost you a bit more than just putting parts in as things go around. I feel like companies have learned a lot from this, as have we, you know, because we weren't prepared for it and it just came out of nowhere.
No, that's true. And I feel like I'm like, when is it gonna stop? Like, is there an end? Like, it feels like I feel like sometimes, like when we think it's kind of getting better, like to me sometimes it feels like, I don't know, is it me, or like I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. When the vaccine came out, they were like, yeah, we're gonna come back like next year. We're gonna get through this, and then there's another strand of the virus, and then we have to worry about that. And yeah, it's pretty chaotic, and you don't know when it's gonna end. Hopefully things open up. I'm pretty sure things are gonna open up next semester, so it's not gonna be that bad.
Well, that's true. But thinking back like about history and what she was saying, I guess this is just the epidemic, or like, you know, the it of our time, because, you know, it was always something, like it was either Spanish flu, or like you know, when the measles was around, or smallpox, and like all those other stuff, like we read about it. So now, because we're experiencing it too, it's kind of more like, oh shit, you know, I kind of know it, even if it wasn't like the exact same thing, but just that hardship, that like wow, I know struggle. You know.
I mean, man, I think they had it way worse. I would not want to be living in those times. I think, man, a lot of people died, right? But I think because of where we live, I think we're in a pretty good position. I know a lot of people have suffered elsewhere who don't live in a place where they have hospitals right, you know, a few blocks away. You know, they have to deal with a lot of stuff. So I'm thankful for that, at least.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm thankful too, but I think like, I don't know, I guess for me personally, it was like just kind of an eye opener. It made me very grateful for like where I do live, and just like, you know, like even in New York, because you were like, even different places that were like you said, more rural, that like a hospital isn't close. Like, you know, I don't know where everyone lives, but I'm sure because we all go to this school, we're like, you know, somewhat in New York, so stuff is still accessible. Like I said, imagine just having to drive like 30 miles to a hospital if you don't feel well. Like, but you know, like that's like the norm, because that's just where like stuff is. But it just really made me grateful for like where I live, and my own, like just my own path and what I do and how it takes effect. Because like certain things I feel like I took advantage of. Like, I don't know, like there are times like like when I was younger, or like I didn't want to go to school, I'd be like, oh yeah, like, you know, even like want to go to the hospital. Now it's like, oh, like, like I don't want to go to the hospital at all. Like, you know, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more scary now. How long is this breakout? I feel like we've been talking for like 10 minutes.
I honestly thought at some point, because she popped in, that we were getting, I don't know. So
I think it was around 20 or 30. That's this.
Sorry if I interrupt some conversation, but we have like 20 minutes more. So who wants to start? Was it interesting to talk in a small group? Yeah, you can just you can talk. Sure.
It was very interesting. With my group, we definitely learned a lot because I was able to see like other people's opinions about their different views and stuff. And I think especially like in the time there's like such a disconnect of what's going on. Like we like read about it, and like so just having these like more like conversations about it helped just to see other people's views and their take on things.
Can you unpack a little bit this kind of like different ideas? Like, can you give us an example? So, if it's okay.
So we were talking a lot about like the cars, especially, and how it affects just like how production was production slows down, and because of that, we saw. Well, actually, it was more like it was a panic. So because it was an increase in panic, people were kind of like buying things that they didn't need. Like, you know, I can speak on that personally, and other members of my group can say that too. And then also that kind of made like kind of like a chain reaction because production also slowed down, you know, like jobs were paused. So now we see things that, you know, we looked over and took advantage of. Like it wasn't just housing, it was an increase in price everywhere. Cars, retail, just kind of like every aspect of things. Now we actually see how it's being affected. Like we were talking about like a shortage of like meat and like different stuff that are happening where we kind of felt like since the vaccine, it would have been like, okay, we kind of see more of maybe like a change in things where almost in a sense it's almost like it's kind of getting worse. But maybe it's like supposed to happen where it gets worse before the storm. And we also touched on history, and we were talking about how maybe this is just kind of the thing from our time because, you know, we read about Spanish flu and like polio and all those other like stuff in the past. But like, I think every era has that like that thing that kind of like affected everyone, not just locally, but globally. And that's just a thing of our time. And I mean, this is just COVID is just a thing of our time. And, you know, it affects us because we're actually living through it. And for me, taking things for granted, it just made me change just, you know, certain things like the way I look at life.
Great. That was pretty good. Anyone else? Other groups? Luca?
This is from Group 6. We talk about that there's an increasing conflict between the owner and the renter because many people are unemployed because of COVID, so that they cannot pay their rent. As a result, some people decide to move to suburbs, which is less expensive than the city. And we also said that we all agree that eventually things will get back to normal as like people get more vaccinated and the price level will eventually return to normal. And that's pretty much about it.
Great. Anyone else? I mean, I heard some conversation in the, I guess, group like 4. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my group. We're you know.
Okay. Okay. But also there was like a other group. I guess Steven wasn't. Steven, are you here? Okay. Yeah. I guess he is having some problems, like audio problems. So.
Oh, you talking about me?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that like there's some conversation in your group too. You were in the group, so I'm just curious if you want to say something.
Oh yeah, I do have connection problems. I had to come upstairs. We were talking about the housing market and how how the housing in New York, how they were like some places were offering like like lower rent or 2 months or 3 months for free, and then for people to come live in their apartments. But now that COVID is like done, you could say, not really done, but in terms of business, it's done. So that's why it's not really everybody, but it was the big property managements, like the property group. Like they were the ones that were offering it because they have what, like 10, 20 properties that they manage. So for them to say, oh, we'll give you 2 months for free, that's $2,000 rent. $4,000 is nothing to them compared to like a mom and pops that own just one apartment, like one house, a 3-family, 4-family. They're more understanding, where they'll be like, oh, okay, if you can't pay, well, you could pay next month. I mean, you could pay next week. But yeah, we were just looking at that and how the difference, like how even with prices like New York has changed. Like you see how it's all about the narrative and how they say, oh, New York isn't safe no more, but New York is really just how New York used to be when we were growing up. Then gentrification happened and it became safe. But now that everybody, all the gentrifiers left, not all of them, but the people who wanted that New York experience, see that New York really has like a, so they ended up leaving. And then but now New York is really the same as how we grew up. What we saw growing up is what we're seeing right now, and that's basically what we're talking about.
Great. Any like disagreements in the group, or do you want to add anything else? Anyone? Like Steven mentioned that gentrification too. If you want to say something about gentrification, I think that's also a good place.
I kind of feel like it's kind of becoming the new norm, and I hate to say that, but I feel like being that we all live in New York, it's kind of like, I don't know, when people talk about New York, it's like, or if I tell someone I'm from New York or I'm living here now, they're like, oh, it's so expensive. But it's like it's kind of like you automatically know it's going to be more expensive compared to somewhere else. So I feel like along the way, like, when did it become normal? Like, why is it more, like, why couldn't everything just be the same in a sense? Like,
Yeah. Anything else? So maybe I can ask like a different question, like which week which week was your favorite week so far? Which did you like reading about like that kind of historical readings, or like the first week? I'm just curious. So
I think for me the most like interesting week was learning about like how they set the federal poverty line, because it's just so crazy. Like like 3 times the cost. It was like 3 times the cost of food for a month or something. It's like how like that doesn't even make any sense. Like they're just assuming that like doesn't make any sense today. And it's just so crazy that they're still using that.
Yeah, I think Sharon also like said like those numbers didn't even make sense. Yeah. Steven?
Oh yeah, I agree with her 100%. Like that was crazy. Like I didn't even know that about like, I know that like but then like it's crazy how they just were like, what, this is what you should make and this is what you should eat. So like this is the price, like this is your poverty line. Like it's crazy. But then again, it goes to show how you see how as years pass by, nobody tried to fix it. Like nobody was like, let's, as everything was increasing and they see everything increasing, but they were just like, that's still okay. Like that's still okay. But then it goes back to the point of where the government, like we are also like the first, like what was it? Like the first session we had, like where like you see how we were talking about Jeff Bezos and about, oh, is it his fault or is it the government's fault? Like it all falls on the government, but then again, it all falls on us because we put the government in place. We're in a democratic society. We elect them. So for us to keep them in power, like that's the thing. Like that's like a main thing where I realized when Bernie came out, like when we all heard about Bernie and all that, like that's the thing. Like that's what I realized. Like it's us, like, like it even happens to me. Like when I went to go for the mayor thing, for the mayoral, like I'm gonna tell you guys, like I voted for Adams, like Adam, like for him, like that's who I wanted for the next mayor. Like that's why I did. But then there was like 3 other people like after that, and I had no idea who they were. I didn't do my research. And then even before that, like there was one that she was Spanish, and I'm pretty sure 100% that everybody voted for her for like the county of Queens. But when I Googled her, it came out that she would lied about her whole thing. Like just Googling these candidates, you'll know where their position is. Like she comes from a rich family. Like her family even said like she was born like we have money. Like she says that. It's just that she was married to like a Spanish person, so she took his last name, and she's using it. And now she's in office. Now that's who's gonna run Queens for the next X amount of years. Like you get like, and that's the thing about us as humans. Like we just go and we're like, okay, we're gonna vote for one person. And then everybody else like, whatever, like, like, but that's the thing, like we have to do our due diligence and really see everybody, because everybody actually affect where I live. I live right here in by Bushwick, so like I live on the border between Queens and Bushwick and Brooklyn, but I'm on the Queens side. Like where I live, like they haven't fixed the road. Like the road they did like two years ago, they opened up the pipes, and now like the road is still like that for 2 years. Where I used to work, I used to work like near Long Island. The same company went to go do it 1 week. The second week they came and they just covered everything, and it was clean, nice, smooth. And it's because those politicians actually care because they pay good property tax. But it's on us that we gotta like put pressure on them. But it also falls on us because we put them in power. We're not in a communist society where they just put their friends. Like we put them. We can't let them lie to us and be like, yeah, we're gonna do this and that. And we gotta really put the finger on them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just me. That's just
Thank you. And I guess we have just a few minutes left. Any like further comments?
I definitely agree with what he said. I think it's a little disheartening when you see how little people care. It's just like, and I think that it might just be human nature, who knows, but how little people care in the sense of once we fixate on a particular person, once we fixate on a particular thing, everything else in that same region goes out the window. So an example would be, I had the choice between a Toyota Camry, an Escalade, and a Buick, and I only care about the Buick. Meanwhile, the Buick has engine issues, the different things that's wrong with it that I didn't take the time to look into, that the other cars are better at, that if I would have chose them, I wouldn't have an issue now. Similarly to what Steve was saying, it's just like, we don't really look into things, we don't really, I think if a lot more people had looked into going back to what we learned this week, if a lot more people had looked into, what's his name? Joseph Moore? I think it is. Oh, Joseph Moses.
Yeah.
And if more people had looked into him, they would have found out how money hungry he was, how much he played the political aspect and how much he wanted power, different things like that. And then they would have realized what it was that LaGuardia did when he was still alive, how much of what LaGuardia did and how he really did stand in the gap for them. Because once, in the documentary, it had mentioned once he was dying, he had said, like, who was going to keep Moses in check? Who was going to make sure he doesn't get out of line? Nobody was left. So I think a similar principle lies and is in office today, and we just have to make sure, like, we are the ones that's keeping them in check because we are the ones that put them there. We are the ones that gave them these positions of power. We are the ones that, essentially gave them the power to do whatever it is that they're doing. And, just apply that pressure. And it's funny because an analogy I can think of is with coal. If you apply pressure to coal, you'll get a diamond. And so with the right amount of pressure, we can get, that good thing, the best out of them, and they can't just get away with anything.
Great. I guess it's a good place to end today, but I just want to ask you can just write on the chat, it's not a question about the lecture, but like, do you like that kind of structure? How, like we do, how I left it, like with the questions? Do you like the breakout rooms, or do you have any suggestions? Like, do you prefer more like a lecture, or do you like that kind of Q&A type? You can just write like one word on the chat if you have any preference. Okay, good. And I guess you like breakout rooms too. I was just like hoping to give a little bit more space for everyone when we have like small groups. Maybe it's easier. Okay, I might like prepare a little bit, like a small lecture next week. You're gonna be here, like maybe I can talk a little bit more in the beginning and like open up for Q&A and like just like do again like maybe 15 minutes breakout room. So I hope you liked the session and have a nice day. Hope to see you next week. And have a nice rest of the week. Bye.